What's up, everyone? This is your Astrology Horoscope for the weekend of February 3rd and 4th, 2024. I'm astrologer Alex Skyles, and welcome to the Moonbase. Hope you guys had a great week. It was wild. The past 2 weeks prior to this week we just went through, I mean, it was an amazing buildup, right? There was so much anticipation and hype for the Sun and Pluto to conjunct and Pluto to come into Aquarius with the Sun, and then all the amazing aspects with Venus and Mars and Saturn and Mercury and Jupiter. And this week, it's like, okay, we've gone through all the buildup, and we've got to experience what this new frequency is. And a lot of new positive, amazing things have come into our life. But at the same time, like this week, it's like the moon's like, hey, don't get too ahead of yourself here. You know, there's still, the reality of just our daily environment with the people that we're with that we have to assess and maintain, along with us chasing our Mars in Capricorn, Mercury in Capricorn, Venus in Capricorn, all the outer planets, Sun, Pluto in Aquarius, Neptune, Saturn in Pisces, our big vision, our destiny, our spiritual divine connection, and all of that is synced right now with so many planets in the outer realms. But with the moon coming into these very personal places in our lives this week, it brought up a lot of very intense emotional things in our relationships. And I definitely had a lot of conversations with people, even in the readings this week. It was like, that was really a lot of the focus was that. And all I could say is coming into Saturday with the moon opposing Uranus, the moon's at 19 degrees Scorpio, Uranus is at 19 degrees Scorpio, the sun's at 14 degrees Aquarius. So what that means is that the sun knows that it's about to square Uranus, and Uranus is dispositing over to the sun. The sun is in Uranus's sign, right, with Pluto, dispositing over to Pluto. So there's just so much deep unconscious stuff coming out of nowhere, like electricity just shooting into us, coming to the surface. You know, some people I've talked to and had readings with this week is like there's been upheavals in relationships, but also, new connections coming in. And the sun knowing it's about to come into a square with Uranus, and the moon opposing Uranus today in Scorpio with Pluto and Uranus dispositing the sun. Uranus dispositing Pluto and Uranus also dispositing the sun. It's like there's so many plutonic elements in our relationships right now. This is a very Pluto moment. We're still in it, and that's only going to amplify because Mars is on its way to conjunct Pluto when the sun comes to square Uranus. And then right after that, Mars and Pluto are going to conjunct. So we're going through a massive transformation, collectively, individually, all of it. I mean, we can see it collectively. We can see all the shit happening at the border. We can see all the shit happening in Europe and in the Middle East. It's all happening at once. Like this is how Pluto works in our personal lives and collectively. We want to always see what's happening outside of our own environments to reflect what's happening within us, to keep ourselves honest, because that's kind of what as above, so below means, right? Is looking outside of you and beyond to have a better picture of what's going on down here and within. So, this moon opposing Uranus today, right in the morning, right as we come into Saturday, it's 2:30 a.m. here on the West Coast, 2:23, just about 2:20. The moon opposing Uranus, like this is like, we're feeling a little unsettled, and there's been so many things in our relationships this week, and deep Scorpio, Pluto shit that's just risen up to the surface, This is a moment where it's like, even the things that have come up this week, I think we're realizing that, either way, like relationships are important. But when the moon opposes Uranus, it's like we still got to have our independence, and whatever things have come up for you this week, like this is a message of, not getting caught up in the codependent stuff in the South Node Libra. Like you want to be willing to step out and sever if you have to. Like I said yesterday, it's like this is all about independence and emotional independence, you know? The moon and our emotions want to feel stable, right? It's been a very unstable emotional past few days. You know, Uranus is unstable. Aquarius is unstable. The sun and Pluto in Aquarius is unstable. It's not stable. It's not grounded. It's out in the ethers. It's trying to find new ways to invent and innovate and create and connect. And you can only do that when you're, you know, seeking into the unknown. And in order to tap into the unknown, you have to be willing to separate from what's comfortable, from where you feel secure. And the moon opposing Uranus, coming off that square to the sun in Aquarius, and the sun in Aquarius knowing it's about to square Uranus. It is like, you know, this is all about independence and being willing to separate, individuate, find your independence. And this is giving us a boost to do that. You know, these oppositions and these squares, you know, that's what they do. They create this element of friction in our lives to really force us to, you know, be aware, bring new awareness into our lives and a new level of consciousness. And what this means is to find a new way to be independent, you know, but also find new ways to have better, healthier relationships. And this is very much an innovative weekend. You know, if you're willing to step into new places and new territory and not get stuck wherever the issues lie and find new ways to solve them, like you're going to come across some things that you never, you know, knew that you could find, you know. But also we're going to see some really wild, chaotic shit happen in the world like all week. You know, there's been wild stuff building up. I mean, Aquarius is the world. It's humanity. It's the world card in the tarot. There's a lot of stuff going on. So we have to be willing to also make changes as everything around us is changing, you know, and liberate ourselves from the old paradigm. You know, this is like the whole new, the old paradigm totally falling and collapsing. So much stuff is being exposed with Pluto and Aquarius. There's that Project Veritas thing that came out, which is with James O'Keefe, that was pretty wild, you know, with one of the White House cybersecurity heads, one of the top people at the cybersecurity in the White House, like, got exposed. You know, this is Pluto. People are getting exposed. If you're doing hidden shady shit, you got hidden motives, or you're keeping secrets, it's like, watch out. Because when you start to really make connections and they're not honest connections, and it's always out of some manipulation or some power play with Pluto, and definitely with Mars coming to conjunct Pluto, like, we're going to see that at an all-time high, you know, but we're also going to see our libido at an all-time high with Mars Pluto. Like, Mars is in its exaltation in Capricorn, but Mars is going to get so ramped up when Mars and Pluto conjunct here over the next 2 weeks, which I'm excited for. I'm stoked. I'm stoked for that. And we all should be stoked for that. But definitely, it's like we've had so much relationship stuff come along this week, and I've seen it. Like, I've talked to so many people this week who are just having so many wild experiences and just sudden shifts and changes in friendships and relationships and partnerships and marriages and just wild stuff. You know, I've heard some pretty wild stuff this week, you know? It's like, and in my personal life too, it's like, you know, I got my own things going on. So it is. It's just being willing. This Aquarius and Uranus is all about being willing to just accept it how it is and how to adapt and make changes. You know, like, there are no mistakes. There are no wrongs. I mean, maybe it's your perception, really, of what a wrong truly is, right? So, like, it's just how we respond to these things. I said these things yesterday. I mean, we're still dealing with this moon in Scorpio. So, you know, there's going to be some radical shit. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw more, like, crazy weather this week. Actually, here in LA, we're having wild rain. It's crazy. It's really intense. We don't see that very often, but, you know, there's been flooding. You know, there's other crazy weather happening across the world. There's been, like, ice storms and shit, you know. With this moon opposing Uranus, it's like, definitely, you know, want to be safe out there and not get too caught up in the storm. there's been so many common things. Like, we've had this dynamic for at least 4 days now. And what's really great, I mean, coming along through Saturday too, is the moon's going to sextile over to Mercury, and then it's going to sextile over to Mars, and then sextile to Mercury after it sextiles Mars. So it's like, even though so many wild things are starting to happen, and if you've gone through some upheavals this week with this, Uranus, Aquarius, and these squares over to Mercury and Mars, and if you've gone through stuff like that with over these past few days, this is when we start to find some where we're going to start to have rational discussions, and really get down to the deep, dirty shit. Like, I think too, like, there's going to be some hidden things that are going to come out, and it can get really emotional, but this is where we start to actively, have conversations where we can just be honest and be straightforward and find a plan to take a better path with this moon sextile over to Mercury and Mars. So this is healthy, because as we're coming out of all these squares and these oppositions in our relationship sector, this is how we're starting to tie it up. Right? So, this is good news. This is really good news that we could tie it up in a fashion where we can just get down to the nitty gritty, on a scorpionic level, on a deep emotional Pluto level, and actually be stoic about about what we need to do and what path we need to take and how we can have better relationships and how we can serve each other better, right? Scorpio is all about, I'm going to give you this and I expect equal back, right? Scorpio is all about, if you really want to get down to the basics of Scorpio in the 8th house, it's loans, taxes, shared resources, shared money, but in relationships, like that's what it's about, right? Is like, where can we pile our resources together on an equal level to expand and have a bigger opportunity as a unit to build a higher destiny and to build a stronger foundation with Mercury and Mars in Capricorn. It does take healthy bonds, Scorpio is all about that bond, that deep bond and that connection. And then, this is all kind of playing out here. Like, it's really amazing to see. I haven't looked this far ahead, honestly. I mean, we knew it was coming, but what I'm saying is that we can finally get over this hump, because definitely the past 4 days has been quite a hump emotionally for a lot of people. So this is really wonderful. And then, we're going to see the moon come into Sagittarius here. And this is exciting, because this is like we're going to see a sudden flip of energy. Venus now at 14 degrees. And then before the moon comes into Sag, like in the afternoon on Saturday too, I want to say, it's like, as we're having these wonderful, realizations and getting down to the deep shit to really get over this hump, the moon is going to try Neptune. So this is a lot of like spiritual creative energy coming in as well at the same time. So this is a wonderful moment here to really bring in some healing if we're willing to surrender. And surrender to the fact that we can't control everything, and that, whatever comes up and whatever deep, intense shit comes up, or some secrets or some whatever, it's like we have to surrender to that and, be in that Neptunian, Piscean state of forgiveness and be willing to forgive and move forward. Mercury just came off that sextile to Neptune yesterday on Friday. So there is this conversation. There are conversations of forgiveness starting to show up and, be possible, but also being willing to just let go. Pisces and Neptune's all about just letting go and just trusting the divine and trusting source. And that's where real power lies, right? So Scorpio and Pluto is always associated with power, But that level of power is also associated with manipulation and just trying to control. To me, like, in my opinion, where the real power lies, it lies in surrender and just letting go and trusting faith and trusting God. We can't control the perfection of the planets, right? This is one thing that remains constant in our lives. All the things in our realities change. People come and go. We get new jobs. We lose a job. We get a new pet. Pets die. That was a pretty gnarly reference. But, nothing stays the same, in life. But the one thing that does stay the same and remains constant is these bodies outside of us that create time and motion, and that we can count on, and we can look through these cycles and see the patterns. So, surrendering to the fact that we're not in control and that we are a part of something greater, going through all these wild aspects with the moon this week. It's like surrender is a key element on Saturday. And definitely once you come into Saturday evening, Saturday late afternoon, going into the evening, there's this opportunity for healing and just, tapping into that deep spiritual place. Being willing to like, hey, I offer this part of myself to you. I want equal back. And putting in the work to get to that place, because that does take work and not everybody's always in the same place, right? And definitely with Scorpio too, it's like in relationships, it's like when your partner's down, you got to be up. And when you're down, your partner's got to be up. And then sometimes you and your partner are up, or in business, everybody's on different wavelengths, and there are magical moments where everything's in sync, but those are pretty rare. What's not rare is the fact that there's this constant ebb and flow of trying to find balance and trying to find equality, which is very Libra South Node, right? So it's just not getting too caught up in wasting too much time. It's like, oh, everything's got to be fair, everything's got to be equal. It's just like, no, we got to be understanding, be aware, and help each other when, one person's down and you're up, or vice versa. I just said that. But it's like, that's what this moon trining Neptune, moon sextile Mars and Mercury, we want to find that place within ourselves, that spiritual place where we can surrender and take a new path towards just letting divine and divinity take over. Neptune, it's 2024. We still got a little less than 2 years when Neptune fully goes into Aries, right? So it'll retrograde back and forth. But we're still here. We're still learning these lessons, especially with Saturn here, about just letting faith and trust and the divine guide us, but also be in the physical world and be realistic and be practical with Saturn and Pisces as well, and not get too caught up in the carnival of Pisces. Somebody commented that on yesterday's video, which I found funny. So yeah, and then later going into tomorrow as well, the moon's going to come into Sagittarius. So this is when the energy starts to shift. So right around midnight, 11 a.m. or 11 p.m. Saturday night, right going into midnight, the moon's coming into Sag, and this is great. We're going to start seeing, the action and the fun start to come in. But the thing is that we got to stay realistic, It's like we're coming off this kind of like very dynamic past few days where it's like, all right, and then we're getting to a place where we can have common ground and have healing conversations. But this is a moment where we don't want to overshoot. We want to embrace the freedom that is coming in here with the moon and Sag, and really getting down to what's necessary in our relationships. But this is a moment, the moon and Sag, I love the moon and Sag, but it's going to square Saturn as we're waking up on Sunday, and it's going to quincunx over to Jupiter. And Jupiter is the ruling planet of Sagittarius. So this is like, we don't want to overdo things. We don't want to push our beliefs and cross boundaries. This is where boundaries get crossed emotionally. We don't want to put too much pressure on, like we are starting to come through the tunnel here and find some healing here. But also, like, we want to, like, hold our value and know our value in our relationships and, not fall into a place of, being too caught up in the fantasy of things. We want to be realistic. We want to have realistic ideas, and realistic philosophies in life. I mean, there's a lot of radical points of view that are coming out right now too, and everybody has their own points of view and everything. But it's like, this is a moment when the moon squares Saturn and Pisces like this. It's like, okay, where do we draw the line? Where do we draw the line with our beliefs and our opinions? Like, this is where our spirituality gets tested. This is where our faith gets tested. Sagittarius and Pisces are the two magical signs in the zodiac to me. Like, those are two of my favorite places. I'm a very 12th house person. I was moon and Sag. Like, I love it. But also too, it's like, maintaining a grounded, realistic approach to life, but also being willing to take the journey, learn new things, and being willing to share and teach, but also being willing to share and teach without forcing your own opinions and values onto people. This moon quincunxing over to Uranus or to Jupiter as well. So we want to be asking why and not telling people why, right? Or allowing people to tell us why. We want to ask why. So this is like an interesting dynamic, this weekend. It's like we're coming off such a personal past few days where now it's like we're getting into outer space here. We're getting ready to get on the spaceship and launch, right? Sagittarius rules airplanes and spaceships. And I was driving home just the other night, and this has happened to me multiple times over the past few months, because the SpaceX launch thing is not too far away from LA. So I look up, I'm driving, and I see some crazy thing shooting across the sky. And it didn't look, it was like on fire, right? It was wild. And it was there for an extended period of time. And then it disappeared. And then it came back, and then it disappeared. Like, that's kind of what this is reminding me of, this moon square Saturn, the moon in conjunct Jupiter. It's kind of like you see something, or like you're on a journey, and you forget where you are. When I saw that, I kind of forgot where I was. I was so enthralled with this vision, and then it disappeared, and I came back to reality, and then it came back, and it took me away. It's like this thing beyond me had my attention and control. Like, I pulled over, and I'm just on the side of the street with my door open, just like, whoa, like tripping out, And then I looked it up on the internet, and it was a SpaceX launch. So I was like, oh, okay. So you might think that something is like, oh shit, that's an alien. It's actually something more practical and realistic that you can actually explain, So this does get down to opinions and beliefs and values too, where it's like, there's some people in the world where they'll see some shit like that in the sky, and they'll insist that was something they can't explain or whatever, even when you can look at the facts, right? But where's the truth? Where does the truth lie? So maybe that is subjective. And with this aspect today, on Sunday, we're going to be asking that question a lot, because we want more freedom, in our lives. We want more emotional freedom. We just came off a very intense emotional week. So this weekend is definitely a weekend where we are being called to, lay down the groundwork for some independence. With that moon opposing Uranus, like we want to have emotional independence and also independence. And when the moon comes into Sag, we need that emotional freedom, but also not to force things and not force our ideas and opinions and, even when it is real, not accept it. So whatever that looks like for anybody in their lives, it's like being humble, being grounded, asking questions, asking people questions, or the people in your lives, asking your partners questions, why do you feel that way? Why do you think that way? What brought you to that understanding? It could be very easy with the moon and Sag to get to a place where it's like, oh, that's not the right way to think, or that's not the right thing to believe, especially square Saturn. It's like, our ideas of what reality and the boundaries of reality are being tested and challenged with Saturn and Pisces so heavily. So, I think this is a very positive weekend of really starting to get some clarity and overcome things, and find some independence and some freedom emotionally within ourselves and in our relationships and in our personal lives. Because we come into next week, we're going to have a new moon in Aquarius. So it's the first new moon in Aquarius with Pluto in Aquarius. Talk about liberation. Talk about being ready to take a new journey and say, fuck the old world. Fuck where I used to be. Forget about it. We're not going to be stuck there anymore. So, I got the 3 of Cups. So, we are celebrating the fruits of our labor. And to me, we've gone through so much the past few days, but we can't forget that the past few weeks prior, we had so many positive, amazing aspects come in here with all planets going direct. All the wonderful trines from Venus, Mars, Mercury to Jupiter, and the sextiles to Saturn, and all of it. Like, as the days go on, and when Mars and Mercury start to get into Aquarius, and we get this new moon in Aquarius, like, we're going to start to see the fruits of our efforts and our labors and start to really pay off here, And Jupiter is going to be coming to 10 degrees very soon. So it's going to be in the second decan. And I remember last year when Jupiter got to 10 degrees, that's when we started to feel Jupiter and its positive, and its positive manifestation, So this is, a weekend where we can celebrate the victories, and not get caught up in the losses, because not every team can have a 500 even score, right? 500 even score meaning an equal amount of losses and an equal amount of wins, Not everybody is a Michael Jordan or a Tom Brady, or they just don't lose. We all have to go through understanding how to lose and how to win. But if you don't know how to lose, you're definitely not going to know how to win, And if you don't know how to win, why are you playing the game? So we're in this game of life, and this weekend it's definitely okay to celebrate the wins, even if they're small. If they're large, amazing, because there are big, amazing things coming in as we get closer to April and May and June. We're going to see some of the most massive expansions in our lives. Wherever Jupiter is in your chart, Uranus, at that time with Venus and Taurus and the Sun, the eclipses in Aries, we're going to see some of the most massive expansion in our lives, and our lives expand in new ways. On a material level, on a physical level, that's what's exciting. We had Jupiter, if you remember Jupiter in Pisces, when it conjunct Neptune, like, it was great. And there was a lot of people talking about Jupiter and Neptune. Oh my God, like, it's going to be such an amazing time, and we're going to experience so much manifestation, right? But that's not physical. That's more of a spiritual expansion with Neptune and Jupiter. With Jupiter and Uranus and Taurus, this is physical, material expansion that we're working towards. And all planets direct now, and all those amazing aspects we've had over the past few weeks, we're going to start seeing the small wins start to show up before we get to the big wins. So, I hope you guys have a great weekend. I will see you Monday. Thank you so much for being here. I'm happy to be sharing this with you guys, and I love the communication that we're having. The reading sale got totally booked, so I appreciate that. There's still some dates in March if you want to book for March. I think at least a little over 50% of those days are still open. So, yes, I'll see you guys Monday. Also, if you're new here, subscribe to this channel and share this video and tell your friends. And in the description of this video, you'll see all the links to all my platforms, to my Instagram, which is where I spend most of my time. My email is there, Spotify, my booking website, everything. TikTok, whatever. I know the young kids love TikTok. So have a great weekend, and I will see you on Monday. And get ready for the new moon next week. So start setting your intentions now as we're feeling this new sense of liberation and emotional freedom that is starting to come through this weekend. Peace out.